So Anthony Edwards has been getting a lot of heat from his statements he made last week with the Wall Street Journal. In case you didn't know what happened, Anthony Edwards said this in a quote: "I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh, but now everybody has skill." So my first reaction to what Anthony Edwards had to say here was ignorance, because you can't say you never watched that era and give an opinion about what it was like back then. Now, if you had watched film, if you have gone into your study times and looked at what basketball was like back then, and then gave your assessment and gave your opinion, cool, that's fine. You're still entitled to your opinion, but it needs to make sense. To say you never watched the 90s basketball and in your conclusion right now is, well, none of them had skill besides Michael Jordan, is just dumb to me, and you're not watching what happened. Now, again, I think Anthony Edwards is the best shooting guard right now in the NBA. And I think he is going to be the face of the NBA. But what he's getting with all this heat, he deserves it, especially with that statement he made. Now, Kevin Garnett came out and said something about what Anthony Edwards had to say. And we're going to play the clip in just a moment. But just to recap who Kevin Garnett is, he plays with intensity. His defense was amazing. I remember he was on the Timberwolves. He won the MVP. He was known as one of the best players in the NBA back then. Then he goes to the Boston Celtics, finally gets his first championship with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. Kevin Garnett is a staple in the NBA community. And you remember him for his focus, for his intensity throughout games, his defensive effort. And he was just fantastic to watch as a basketball player. So he even took his shades off during the interview. That's how I know it's really bad for Anthony Edwards here. But let's go ahead and play that clip, and I'll give you more of my thoughts.
If I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago. If I'm being 100, and this is to everybody in our league, Tatum, all y'all. Let me tell y'all something, bro. 20 years ago, bro, you couldn't get to a triple step back.
No.
You hear what I'm saying to you? You couldn't get to a triple step back, and then if you shot that, it had to go in. You know why? Because we had efficiency back in the day, my dude, and it was so hard. It was too physical. And guess what? The league had to come off of it for the flow of movement to be able to have scoring go up, which is why we like to sit here and watch kind of the rat race of the high-paced game, right? But, bro, let's not talk about the gamemanship, and let's not talk about the physicality of the game back then. Real shit, because I only think half these kids in the league could have been on an NBA team 20 years ago.
Straight up.
The locker room was too too grown.
You know what I watched too? You know
what
I watched?
Grown. It was two of them. It was too much of a fraternity. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man.
Just
like
the hand check.
No, bro. It was a different vibration. David Stern did a great job of taking all of the physicality out of the game. You understand? Freedom of movement means freedom of movement. Man, back in the day when you had to get by Paul because Paul was squared up with you and ready to slide, and then he could body you, he could poke, he could use his hands, but I can use my hands.
I could fight through a screen.
Bro, the we saw in the Olympics was similar style play when the guard could ride you over the pick,
yeah.
And if you don't know how to get out of that, and the nigga Holiday, when he come out and he get over, he there. Right. So if you go to cross him, bro, you don't even. That's what I'm saying, bro. Man, the levels in which you had to be not only strong enough but skilled enough to get by this in front of you. You understand? And then they ain't never seen a 6'7" Rodman guard you. Bro, I see you. And you know, you're in the scout report. We know you go left. We know you can finish right, but you go left to pull up. Bro, everybody knows. Bro, niggas watching the games back then. The Isaiah Thomases and the Dumars, man. Dumars shut Jordan down. Bro, they was coming to the lane, bro. You might get your nose broke trying to dunk. You understand? Dwayne Wade broke Cole's nose in the All-Star game. Man, bro, it's just different. It was very different back then, bro. Real shit. I'm talking about in the locker room. You can't be on your phone in the locker room. You can't. Bro, 20 years ago? Nah, nobody in this era could have played 25 years ago. We said that. And I'm talking about not just the play and all the skill that everybody got, actually was called bad shots and lack of efficiency. It was until they start all the data and saying take more threes than twos. Before then, we played ball, bro. We didn't give a all that other. And the GM couldn't come down and say, put into a game plan with a coach like Doc or D'Antoni talking about, we trying to get touches and touch the paint. Bro, I didn't see.
Yeah, it's hard to say more skill.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Nobody in this era has a mid-range.
You couldn't get, nobody.
Nobody in this era has a post game.
And the ones that do look amazing. Look at Shea. Shea got a mid-range.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's only like a few of them got.
That's what I'm saying, bro. 2 dribble, pull up.
Yeah, they don't
try to do. Okay, young fella, if you hear me, and then y'all exhaust the ball. Y'all are dribbling the air out of the ball.
Right.
Y'all dribble the ball 100 times more than another.
Right.
Catch it off the bounce. 1 dribble, 2 dribble, pull up. Let me see you do that off the bounce.
Right.
Let me see your skill work off that. I ain't even known it like this, but bro, you can't come from I expect a rebuttal on bro. Real it was totally different. And you had to have that work, and you had to really work on your. And it wasn't no, you was out 2-3 games, man. Your teammates, hey, bro, what you doing tonight? You going? Nah, I can't go, man. My toenail off, man. I can't. Nah, bro, you can't even come in here and lead no like that. You hear me?
Nah.
So you had to strap it up, and you had to get out here. You had to dive on the floor. You had to get in the rumble. Yeah.
Right.
Real shit. You had, man, it was men leading men. Yeah, ain't none of these men in no lockout. And Anthony Edwards don't know what's going on with the league policy. This, bro, you understand what I'm talking about? The leader, bro. Man, I can't even have this conversation.
You can't even say it if you ain't watched.
It ain't the same. It ain't the same.
Like,
then
don't
you say I didn't watch.
And don't say you didn't watch.
Man, Jordan, the only one has skill. Yeah, I know you didn't watch the game.
I know you
But
didn't
him saying
watch.
that.
Yeah,
So,
you can't say that.
You know what?
And then
Respect
say
to
you
the
don't
young
watch.
fella, man. I don't get on here, and we don't use this platform to douse anything. But I'm not gonna start the cooning. I'm here to elevate the game. I'm here to help the young players elevate themselves. But it's always different eras. And when you hear Michael Jordan and some of the greats talk about the different eras of play, the 80s were different from the 70s, the 70s was different from the 60s, the 60s was different from the 50s. But in all of it, it had gamemanship, it had aggressiveness, and it had stuff that came with it that you didn't really hear about that you hear now.
During that clip of Kevin Garnett, he made some really good points about the data, how people rely on threes more than twos now. That changed things. I think that is a skill to shoot the three-point shot, so I don't think you should take that away from players. But at the same time, you can admit that, okay, they don't rely on the mid-range shot as much. The only guys that really go to that part of their game is Kawhi when he's healthy, SGA. Those are 2 names that I can think about. And shout out to KG for shouting out SGA because he's really good in isolation and getting to his spots in the mid-range. He doesn't just rely on the three-point shot. And also just getting the basket and drawing fouls. But on the flip side of that, you don't see a lot of players going to the mid-range game. I don't see Jason Tatum doing that. He relies on step-back threes and shooting three-point shots or just hoping to draw a foul. I don't see Stephen Curry. He's a three-point sniper, so I get that. Luka loves to shoot his three-point shots. Sometimes he'll get to the mid-range or into the paint, but he loves to shoot those step-back threes as well. So you don't always see players go into the fundamentals today, and that's understandable. But let's just look at the players from the 90s. Let's just say they had no skills. Chris Mullin, Gary Payton, Tim Hardaway, Kevin Johnson, Reggie Miller, Penny Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal. Kobe Bryant was born in the 90s. Kevin Garnett was in the 90s. I know it was late 90s, but he was playing then. Dennis Rodman, David Robinson, John Stockton. Like, these guys had skills. And how should we define a skill? As somebody who's really good at something. So when we look at those players, people have said, well, they won't translate in today's game. Well, you have to realize all they focused on was basketball. They didn't have the social media or the phones. They were just working on their game. And I think there would have been an adjustment period, in my opinion, especially with, the three-point shot. But I definitely believe they would have caught up to it because they had the mentality, they had the physicality back then. And obviously they couldn't hand check like they could back in the 90s, but I still think they would be really good today because of just their mental fortitude, their ability to just hustle and play hard and stay focused and locked in. Whereas players today don't always have that same mentality. Sometimes people sit out games, like, why are they sitting out? You see players just not putting in that same effort, don't have that same dog mentality. Really today, who really has a mentality like Jimmy Butler, who just goes out there and wants to kill you? You don't see a lot of that going on. So I get where Kevin Garnett, Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson have come out and just really criticize Anthony Edwards, because the reality is, this era needs to have that type of force. Do I think this era could translate to the 90s? I think some of them could. I do believe that. Do I think a guy like LeBron James, do I think a guy like Anthony Edwards could play back then? Yeah, I could. I know people like to get on LeBron James, but he's physical. He can go out there and just bully you. He's shown that time and time again. I think the biggest issue is that this era continues to disrespect the 90s, to act like they were just trash and act as if they couldn't play in today's era. That's where there's so much back and forth going on. And I think it's just ridiculous, because you got to respect who was here before you. You got to make sure that, okay, yes, they didn't have the same equipment, the same training, they didn't have the same resources, but at the same time, those are still really good basketball players. Because here's the problem with this situation. When we get to the next decade of basketball and fans have their favorite players, they're watching the NBA, they are going to start trashing Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry. They're going to start saying, well, the era of the 2010s was trash. The era of the 2020s was also trash. And you're going to be upset about that as a fan, because those are your favorite players growing up. You're going to say you didn't watch them. You didn't know what was going on. What are you talking about? And you're going to know what it feels like, just like the fans from the 90s who are defending that era right now. And they're going to have their own reasoning. They're going to have their own takes. You're going to be mad about it. You're going to be going back and forth. But that's what's going to happen to them, whether you like it or not. That's just the reality. When we have something new, we want to put that on a higher pedestal. It's going to happen to LeBron James, where people are going to say, okay, this player is better than LeBron. You're like, that's crazy. You look at Kevin Durant or Steph Curry or Kawhi Leonard, you're like, I can go on and on. These players who we prop up right now, who we appreciate for their greatness, are going to be scrutinized. They're going to be looked at as a player who is trash, who doesn't know what to do, who doesn't play basketball. They're going to even say they couldn't survive in the next era of basketball. That's going to happen. And you're going to know how fans felt in the 90s when their favorite players are being disrespected today. It's just going to be a recurring cycle. So again, be ready for it, because it will take place, and these young fans are going to be gunning for your favorite players, and you're going to have to defend them, and it might not be pretty, but that's going to happen in the future. And yeah, I just think we have to recognize, when it comes to the players of the past, just respect them, just give them their kudos and credit, because without Michael Jordan, without guys like Penny Hardaway, Shaq, the league wouldn't be where it is today. Those are just facts. Without Magic and Bird, we don't have the NBA to where it is today. So just appreciate the greatness. I'm not saying you can't prop up your favorite players and say LeBron's better than Michael Jordan. I have no problem having those debates. I think Michael is better. But at the same time, I think we just have to have proper conversations and not disrespect the old generation and act like they didn't do nothing. That's just crazy to me. Those are my thoughts for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what Anthony Edwards had to say about the 90s basketball and how they apparently had no skill. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.